So it was always described to me by Edgar and Dad that White Gladstone was the very first ever Ray White franchise outside of the White family. A situation that came about apparently due to the expansion of Gladstone and the Gladstone's industrial base in the 1980s. So in the late 70s and early 80s, it was mostly driven by the construction of the Boyne smelter at the time. A lot of investors were coming into Gladstone, property investors looking to put their money into Gladstone. Dad and Edgar realised that a lot of these people were coming from southeast Queensland. They wanted to buy investment properties. However, they didn't really recognise a real estate agency in town, and no particular real estate agency in Gladstone stood out to them. So they took a trip to Brisbane thinking, well, I wonder if we can find a brand that we can put on our shop front that helps attract new people to Gladstone. So they ended up taking a trip to Brisbane, driving around Brisbane and seeing all these yellow Ray White signs around. So they were able to get a meeting with Brian White and decided one thing led to another. Obviously the meeting went pretty well and they decided, well, let's have a go at putting a Ray White sign on our shop front in Gladstone. It was told to me that Brian said, well, we've never done anything like that before, but let's give it a try. One thing leads to another. Decades later, the brand continues to grow across the globe.
Yeah, well, I started in real estate when I was 17, day after I left school in a very small town. And I just wanted something bigger. I didn't want city life, but I just wanted something in between. And, you know, Gladstone was a really good fit. You know, Gladstone certainly had a bit of a pulse to it. I detected that early days. I did know a few people here as well. And yeah, it's been very, very good to me. I turned up here in a Datsun 200B. Everything that I owned was on the back seat and a bit of it was in the boot as well. And, you know, Gladstone's been very, very good to me. And I think I've been good to it as well.
Well, to be honest, I had absolutely no idea what real estate was about, and that was one of the reasons I went to talk to Edgar. And of course, Edgar had been in the industry for so long, and he just said it's just the way he spoke about how wonderful a career it could be. You could work until you're 100 in real estate if you wanted to. It's just that sort of an industry, and I guess, yeah, I got really excited about it. I had a couple of follow-up meetings with Edgar, and when I made the decision, I went back and spoke to him and he said, well, Julie, he said, Bruce and I have had a chat, and he said, if you want to go into real estate, he said, there's a position here waiting for you.
So how I come across Ray White Gladstone was that when I decided to come to Gladstone, I rang 4 agents, and there were 2 that got back to me, but the core values of Edgar and Bruce that spoke to me together, which I think was special, I picked up that this is the right fit for me. You know, the family values, what they stood for, they knew the community inside out. They made Gladstone to me feel like a big version of where I came from, which was a town of 500. So that's what brought me here. My first introduction was Edgar rang me one morning and he said, I remember you, and we'd like to meet up with you. So that was on a Friday morning. And so immediately I just jumped in my Datsun, got to Gladstone in about 3 hours and a half. And then I had an interview with them on the Friday afternoon about 4 o'clock. And that's how I got to know the guys. I walked in the door, the front of the office, it had red carpet walls, had a beautiful Ray White logo, and I didn't think I was in a real estate office for a minute. But the boys come out and greeted me, and you know, I felt that these guys were humans. You know, there was certainly nothing mechanical about them whatsoever. So anyway, post-interview, Edgar said to me, would you like to come down to the RSL? And I said, sure. I mean, I thought I was halfway to a job. And so we went down to the RSL, and I watched everything happening there. There was a lot of networking going on. You know, there were valuers, solicitors, bankers. Basically, you know, it was a very good sense of how they operated in the community, face to face. I saw a lot of magic happen in terms of real estate, you know, just in terms of how they supported their customers to make things happen. And it was really special. And as the night went on, it got a little bit sort of hairy, and I think I got the job about 11 p.m, but I can't remember.
As a kid growing up around real estate, my early memories of being involved in the business really stem from two things. Mowing lawns on subdivisions. I remember earning a little bit of pocket money as a teenager, pushing the mower up and down vacant blocks of land out on land estates. I'd have to load the mower into the ute. Dad would drop me off with a bottle of water, a tin of fuel and a lawnmower, and return about 5 hours later. It was before the days of mobile phones, so I just had to stay there mowing the lawn, and someone would come back and get me several hours later. And my other very vivid recollection as a child surrounded by real estate, the sign runs. As a kid, I remember it was very exciting as a kid. You'd be able to get involved in the sign runs around town, putting up and pulling down signs, and as a kid it was pretty fun to ride around in the back of the ute. Something that's particularly memorable to me was the inbound phone calls to our house. But again, before the days of mobile phones, every signboard had an after hours number. Window cards in our office display would have after hours phone numbers, and that was always the landline at home. So as a kid, I recall being taught how to answer the telephone at home and take messages for Dad. We used to have the phone on the wall and a message pad beside the phone, and both my sister and I were taught that we had to answer the phone, be polite, and if it was work related for Dad, take a message with the people's name and phone number, what the message is about, and that sat on a file spike on our kitchen counter. And Dad would return those phone calls when he got home. Hi everybody, and thank you for joining us on what is a special day for Ray White here in Gladstone. Today we celebrate an amazing milestone. The Ray White Gladstone business turns 40 on the 27th of May 2020. It was probably inevitable I'd end up in the business at some point. Although growing up, Bruce had always told me, Mum had even said, you are not getting into real estate. This is not a career path that you want to do. And just by chance, after I left school, I moved to Brisbane studying at university. And it was around about 2003, 2004, the first stage of the Rio Tinto Yarwun plant was under construction. And the real estate market in Gladstone was very buoyant. So call comes from Dad, why don't you come up here, have a go at real estate? The market's strong, let's give that a shot. So in 2004, I started in the Ray White business in Gladstone, almost having grown up around it my entire life. It definitely turned out to be much different to what I thought it was going to be.
In 1956, the Allen family came from Krakow to Gladstone. The reason we came here was our father was fielding at the races here in those days. He was a bookie here. Initially, there was a grocery store attached to a house, and my mum and dad rented that grocery store and the house to live in. Its name was Cut Price Store. Dad had that fruit shop, but then he got a brain tumour, and he had to have a brain operation in Brisbane. Edgar was going to university in Brisbane, and because Dad had to leave the store to go to have the brain operation, Edgar came home to run the store, along with my eldest sister, Thela. They ran that shop. Some years later, they closed the fruit shop, and Edgar went in there as Edgar Allen Real Estate. It was quite a new thing for Edgar. He'd only just branched into real estate. So then they operated as Edgar Allen Real Estate, and then the opportunity came along to join the Ray White group. Edgar and Bruce negotiated with Brian White, I think, and they became the first Ray White franchise in Australia. Opened here in Gladstone. When they were going to do this, I've had nothing to do with real estate. I'm a truckie, but I told Edgar and Bruce that they were mad, losing their own name, which they'd developed and was going quite well, and taking on a franchise. Anyway, I've probably got to admit today that I was probably wrong. But anyway,
One of the proudest things, and going back to when I first met Edgar and Bruce, one of the first things they told me, and it was almost like evangelism, was that we were the first franchise. And there was only 120 offices at the time where I first met Edgar and Bruce, but they were just so proud we were the first franchise. We taught the company the model. I've spoken with Edgar and Bruce, I've spoken with Brian White right at the top, and it's the same story. And Brian tells me as well, thank God for the Allen boys, they taught us the model. So I've seen Ray White from a time where it had 120 offices just through Queensland, there was nowhere else. And then all of a sudden, they went on a big growth phase. They took on New South Wales, Victoria, they jumped to WA, then they jumped over the Tasman to New Zealand. But all in all, every office that I've ever been to is a family office. And that's what rings true right through the whole thing. I've driven past offices in Bali with straw roofs. I've seen it everywhere. I've seen the office hidden away in a tower in Hong Kong. This is a big company, but it's built on family businesses. It's really important.
What an experience to be here congratulating Gladstone on their 40th anniversary being in Ray White. In fact, it brings back such personal memories. I was there in Gladstone with Edgar Allen, coming to an agreement for the very first franchise in the Ray White network. If this hadn't been the success that it has, our confidence in the franchising model could well have been badly damaged. And knowing now with Andrew and John, the way they've kept this business and developed in the way they have, just terrific credit. I salute you on your anniversary. Thank you so much for being part of our family.
Julie Wood from Ray White in Gladstone. I'm standing at the front of 15 Leslie Street, Clinton. This big
what I thought about real estate, whether my perception changed, I think it's far more than what I had ever anticipated, because I love people, so going out and talking to people about their home and how wonderful an opportunity we have to go into somebody's home and talk to them about their lovely home, what they need to do to sell it. It's a real privilege to do that for people. The decision to go into real estate, I was 52. It was a bit scary to make that decision when I had a good job and one that I loved with Gladstone Group Apprentices, and to leave that and to go into something that I knew nothing about and had to earn my own money was quite scary. But I'm so glad I did, because it was the best decision I could have made. And I honestly believe if I hadn't have gone and talked to Edgar, and I had just picked out a real estate agent in the main street, I honestly don't know whether I would have felt at home. And I think that's the whole thing. I felt comfortable and wanted to give it a real go, which I did.
During my involvement with the Ray White Gladstone business throughout my lifetime, something that's always stood out to me was the cultural aspect of what Dad and Edgar had created Ray White in Gladstone. Remember going to various Christmas parties and staff functions over my childhood where you just knew people were having a good time and they enjoyed the atmosphere in which they worked. And that's something that I guess John and I really tried to continue to run with, was a culture of trying to create a fun environment for people, and an environment where over time I guess things have had to become much more professional than they probably were in the 70s, 80s and 90s. Yeah, it's definitely the case that a lot of the things that we probably used to do can't be done anymore. So you've got to find a balance between maintaining a really professional environment and giving people the opportunity to enjoy where they work. Edgar always taught me we live by deeds, not words. That meaning that your results speak louder than your words. That's something that we try to maintain to this day, is making sure that we do good business with good people. And in a small town, we're never afraid to walk away from a transaction that just might not be right if it's not the right thing to do.
There you go. Good old wine glass.
Well, look at it, the six of us sitting here. So tonight's like our inaugural tenure dinner. Something I've been wanting to do for a couple of years, but finally found the time and a great reason. Seeing we have new members this year, and the people that have been with us and for a long time, a decade plus. To have a group of people that have been working together for so long is a pretty special thing. It doesn't happen often. So yeah, I really want to thank all you guys for your support over the years, and really look forward to watching this event grow. Imagine having 15, 20 people, something like that.
Bruce actually operated the rental side of that business for a lot of years. That's what he did mainly, along with being the top salesman. Bruce could sell real estate. He had a natural ability to get people's confidence and sell real estate. He sold a lot of people, a lot of real estate, but people did very well out of. Of course, Edgar took on the role in the business of being more the managerial side of it, because that lends it to his ability. His ability was in the paperwork side of running the business, because he'd done senior. Bruce was like me, done grade 8, I think, which used to be the year before you went to high school. He might have went to high school for a year or so. I went there for 7 months and I was out of there. But anyway. I followed a career of trucks and earth moving. Because of that, I had some experience managing subdivision works for other clients. So I had the expertise to actually build subdivisions. Edgar and Bruce would find the availability of people wanting to sell land that could be developed. So it worked as a really good team. I mean, Edgar and Bruce had the opportunity to know all about what will work when you do subdivisions, etc. They also knew somewhat about the design of subdivisions. It's quite a process. And because there was the three of us working together on that side of things, we were able to handle a lot of those problems that came along in trying to do that, because we all had expertise in different areas. That's how we got started in the development of land. We formed a company to actually do that work. The three of us were the shareholders of that company, and that was probably back in the early 80s, and that partnership only wound up 5 or 6 months ago. It was in force right up to then, so we operated that as a company that just done that development work. You know, over time we did fairly well with it, and all of our families have been able to do very well with that start. Unfortunately, because I'm on my own and I lost my 2 brothers, we haven't been able to carry that on forever. So,
When I turned up here in 1988, I knew something fairly crook had happened. You could tell that the town was in repair mode, the real estate market was in repair mode. When I started here, I saw blocks of land at 8 grand. I saw houses at 40 grand. I saw units at 32. And it came off an incredible boom back in the early 80s. You could really sense that there was some really unusual and terrible things happen in terms of the market. You know, mortgagee in possessions, high interest rates, all those sorts of things. And then I navigated my way through the 90s in property management, because I knew that that's where I would get paid. You know, in terms of sales, it was fairly dormant and it was hard. And I thought, well, I need to learn the town a lot more. I need to get a bit more mature, I guess. And then my first boom I saw was in 1996. It was when Bechtel and Menanco did the 3rd pot line at Boyne Island, and I saw things jump a lot. I saw the market jump 50 grand in 1 week, and I thought, wow, this does happen. I thought that these were war stories. And so we saw a little boom, and then it sort of dropped off, and then, you know, the Arwen projects all kicked in, and, you know, things got better again. Then we had GFC in 2008, so it dropped. And then, you know, we had a market that I think was just overinflated. in about 2011-12. It was a boom to end all booms. It was like 3 booms in one. And the market just went absolutely unbelievable to levels that I never thought I would ever see.
The liquefied natural gas industry is attracting workers to Central Queensland from across the globe. But the population boom means there's a severe housing shortage, and higher living costs are leaving many families struggling to get by.
The emerging liquefied natural gas industry has attracted thousands of workers, but a severe housing shortage is driving up living costs.
Rental prices have doubled, and for someone to have a $300 weekly rent and for that to go to $600 a week is just, terrible.
LNG snuck into town. I mean, it was about November 2011, and a guy from Bechtel came in and very under the radar and said, we're just going to need a few houses, which turned out to be thousands. There was no accommodation in town. The construction companies had, beaten everyone to the gun. And so therefore, the laws of supply and demand occurred, but also the unfortunate thing that occurred was that there was no accommodation, and people were being displaced, and people actually, the tenants that I've got enormous time for, all had to leave and go to Bundaberg and Hervey Bay. And so Bundaberg and Hervey Bay had a boom because of Gladstone, because of displacement. There were a lot of social problems. I think, some of the things that the companies didn't really marry up with a small town. And I think in the bigger picture, I'm still got mixed emotions on whether it was a good thing or not. Just like a balloon, it didn't deflate, it got burst, and then the market just completely collapsed around 2014, and Andrew and I had to really look inward a lot to make sure that our team were right, that we survived. We did our best during that time. During that time also, we built a very magnificent rent roll. There were 2,000 vacancies, and we had to go find tenants. We didn't need the property so much. And, we built a really good business, I feel. And right at the moment, I think, just to round that out, is that we're in a position now where the town is very, very beautifully balanced. It's got growth, but it's not fake growth, and it's not growth that's for happening because of anything that's not real. And so therefore, the people that hung in and believed in the town, they've reaped their rewards, and good on them. And good on us for sticking at it too, I think. Yeah.
It's quite an exciting time to think about where the Gladstone economy is at right now. Gladstone absolutely has a history and reputation for being a boom-bust city. From the time it was settled until the time of the LNG construction, that stigma around Gladstone's existed. Nowadays, that after the recovery of that LNG construction period, that the town's a completely sustainable economy of its own. The scale of what Gladstone has to offer, it's absolutely world class. And while the population itself is only quite small in comparison to Rockhampton, Bundaberg and other surrounding regions, the fundamental economic base of Gladstone offers such an opportunity for growth, economic growth, and the growth of the talent and skills that the people in Gladstone have. So it's a very exciting time, and I think the future for us at Ray White in Gladstone is extremely bright. Probably post-COVID, we really saw clouds part and blue sky really open up into what's a very, very bright future for the Gladstone region. For the Ray White Gladstone business, we really foresee our future as growth in 2 parts. It's obviously growth of the business itself. That's the number of people that join us, the number of deals that we do, the properties we manage. Obviously, that's just part and parcel with growth, but overall something that our scale provides, and personally I want to be able to offer the opportunity for the growth of our people, but providing opportunity for people to be who they want to be and have the career that they want to have. The real estate industry offers such a wonderful career path and a profession that people can really excel at and set themselves up for an amazing future.
What do you think that our clients actually value from us? Communication, 100%. They want to know what's going on. So this is now, I sometimes divide the room when I say this, but when you give somebody some advice, is that at that point in time the best in market?
Ray White's always been a go-to agency. It's got core values that I think are clearly aligned with a small community here. We don't regard Gladstone as a city. It's not. It's our town. I've always subscribed to that, and I think the people that we've worked with that have actually got it know that we align with the core values of this town. It's difficult for me to go to the shopping centre for 20 minutes. It's always 2 hours. You run and bounce into people. I ran into a lady the other day who was my tenant back in 1992. It was just like yesterday. And she remembers it, and she remembers the good things we did. The little people are the core of the business as well. We manage around about 25% of the properties in town. That's not lost on what we do. It's a responsible thing. We provide shelter, we provide homes, and we respect those people. Even when big companies come along, I always back the little guy, every time.
Actually taking over the business and ownership of the business was something that was never really on my radar. I probably always thought that I'd end up following an aviation career that I was studying at the time. I guess it wasn't until my dad got sick, I sort of had to make a decision. Well, is this something that I'm going to set my sights on and be a real estate practitioner and make that a career? And at that time, Edgar was also at the point where both Dad and Edgar were gearing up for retirement. When Dad got ill and after he passed away, the opportunities then presented to John and myself to say, well, if you want to have a go at this, now's the time. So probably with John and myself having known each other for so long, it was a great business partnership, a business marriage, if you like, because the two of us really had such different skill sets and such different ways of doing things that I think it really each other's strengths and weaknesses complemented the business very, very well. So at that point, once Edgar decided he was ready to hang up the gavel, John and I went into it head first and just gave it all we had. Probably both extremely naive, thinking that we knew everything. I think I was probably 25 at that time and thought that I thought I knew everything about the world and thought I knew everything about the real estate industry. And boy, did I learn a lot over the last decade and a half. Yeah.
I'd just like to say that the events that led to where the Allen family is today, getting there through some fairly hard times at times, because nothing ever runs smoothly in business, but in us three brothers, we were very strong in supporting each other. So come hell or high water, we were going to survive, even though at times each of our businesses came under pressure because of different forces. But we were able to find a way, and that's how we built it to what it's ended up. It got that tough at times that to pay our wages, we had to cash cheques on Friday to get the wages, which wouldn't be presented until Monday or Tuesday. In those days, you got 3 or 4 days grace on cheques. So we used to cash the cheques to pay the wages Friday, and by Monday we would have rounded up enough money to cover those cheques. So business, well, I suppose it's not all that different today, but business has always been pretty hard, the ups and downs.
All my competitors, I have to be on my game every minute of the day, and obviously providing good service. Professionalism is everything for us. Being professional, whatever comes out of your mouth, that's how people sum you up these days. Within 10 seconds, they tell you the
thrill in the chase.
Yeah, and obviously negotiating is just, I love negotiating sales. Just love to see people's emotions when I'm having that conversation, whether it's over the phone or face to face.
The core value is family. I mean, You know, every staff member that I've ever met, and I've had the pleasure of working with 400 during my career at Ray White, that's 400 local people. I've always met their partners, their kids. I think that that's priceless, and it's really important to get to understand your people. Your people are everything. Without them, you've just got 4 walls and a roof and a floor. Sometimes when I've recruited personally, just for the property management team, I've chosen people with no skill over people with 15 years skill. Because, you know, we get very focused on what people can be, less so what they are. I get enormous pleasure, Andrew does too. I've watched, you know, Andrew in this space for a long, long time. I met Andrew when he was 6. So, you know, we put a lot of focus on how we can organically grow our people. And that's where the fun of it is just watching that development. And you know, people come and go all the time. It's that type of town. But you know, what we get a lot of pleasure out of is the growth in the people, getting the best from them, watching confidence. And you know, when they do go on other paths, I stay in touch with a lot. And you know, I get a lot of pleasure out of where these people head, you know, throughout their lives. You know, I've met young single ladies that I now know as grandmothers. You know, that's if you hang around long enough, you get that. You get the pleasure of seeing that. It's really important. And I think in terms of the office now, it's a very big office. I mean, when I started there was 9 people. There's now, I counted it yesterday, 35. It's a big office, but it's not. It's not. It's just 4 little offices. Might be 9 small offices, I don't know. But, you know, it's really, it hasn't lost its ethic and it hasn't lost its core value whatsoever.
It is a real family business. You know, just the going out for dinners and things like that, you know, the opportunity to be together as a group, and they were really really lovely times. So, you know, it was just nice to be able to go out for dinner, the movies. How many times do we do all those sort of things, you know, over the years with Edgar and Bruce and you know, all those sort of things, and with you and John, take all the staff out and their partners, you know, those sort of things are pretty rare in a company, I think. But you go out for dinner and then you go to a movie with your boss. How great is that? I know a lot of people change careers, not only change careers, but they can change with who they're working for. That never, ever once entered my mind. I never had any thoughts of leaving Ray White. That was my home, my family, my workplace, where I felt comfortable and knowledgeable. And yeah, I just encourage people to nurture what you've got and love where you're working. And yeah, I think Ray White has a lot to offer, Ray White Gladstone.
So right now we're at an extremely exciting time in our business and the real estate industry in Gladstone. It almost feels like the closer we get to our potential, the further away our potential becomes. With everything going on in the Gladstone market at the moment, it's quite exciting to think about all the new doors and possibilities that could be open to us. I think the story's to be continued. I can't wait to see where we go next.